What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm the Jedi Ninja, and just yesterday, Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics had an AMA on Reddit for Marvel Avengers, and I've been super hyped for this game for a while now, but I've kept it super low-key because I didn't want to get my hopes too high. And a few days before this AMA, we had the Avengers War Table, which is Crystal Dynamics' developer blog, where we got a bunch of details on the story, the main bad guy, as well as a great gameplay trailer that showed off some of the cool abilities that at least we'll see from one of the strongest Avengers, Thor himself. I'm really excited for this game now that I've seen the gameplay and I've learned a lot more about it, because it's not simply a single-player campaign like the Spider-Man games were. This is going to have a lot of co-op and upgrade functionality, similar to looter shooters like Destiny, or even a little bit more like Diablo 3. So without further ado, let's talk about who we're going to be fighting in the single-player campaign to start us off. It's going to be MODOK and AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics. So in the aftermath of what this game is calling A-Day, which was a Terrigen event that ends up with the creation of the Inhumans like Ms. Marvel on the screen right now, the government and AIM have basically blamed the Avengers for all of these problems. And now AIM is using robots and drones to police the world in the name of science and humanity, when in reality, they're experimenting on the Inhumans and using those powers for their own nefarious plans. Now, in-game, we'll be playing through this story as well as some of the events that led up to A-Day itself, all the while playing through war zones and other missions that we're gonna get to right here in this AMA. Now, these were just the top 10 or 11 questions that I thought were super important and made me the most hyped to play. So, let's get into it. Can you play online with one friend and two AI? The answer was simply yes. Philippe, the community director for Marvel Avengers, answers some of these questions super simple and super sweet, sort of like this one. So let's expand on this a little bit. Can you play with one friend and two AI? So that's me as a player, one friend as a player, and then two bots that play with us. That's pretty cool, because that also means we'll most likely be able to play with two friends and one AI, or just by myself and no AI, and still advance along the war zone and learn about all the characters and learn and fight all the bosses as we go. That's pretty sweet. The next question said, if we're playing with an AI team, are we able to switch between characters? So, say I choose to play as Thor and my team was Hulk, Kamala, and Iron Man, but I decided whilst playing, I wanted to switch to Kamala. Is there something I would be able to do? Phil just answered, you would have to leave the mission to select a different Avenger to play. The mission adjusts difficulty based on your hero, so that's why it's built this way. So at first I was like, man, that's kind of lame. But after thinking about it, and after thinking about the upgrade system and how your characters develop individually, it's going to kind of base the characters on each hero's individual strength. So if you have a super upgraded Kamala, but your Iron Man hasn't ever been touched and you've been playing the game for 6 months, they don't want to scale your Iron Man too quickly or make it impossible for you to win the mission because that hero is too weak. So you'll have to back out and restart the mission with the selected heroes so that you can progress through the mission safely and efficiently. So this one's a little bit longer. It says, hi Philippe, super excited about the game. I only have 2 questions. Hope you can answer them. In story missions, not a hero mission, can you freely choose the character you want to play, or is it a specific character for each mission? And in this question, they said the campaign missions are specifically tailored for one or more Avengers, so you don't choose which hero you play there. Alright, so that basically means you don't get to pick which hero you want for the campaign missions. It's specific to the story. That's how I read it, but this tells me something a little bit differently in the next portion of this question. Listen up. In co-op and war zones, is there another method of communication besides mic, chat, or ping? Objectives in the map, ? And I don't know if it's too early to tell, but if you can answer when DLC characters are added, can you play story missions as them? Thank you. Phil added, we do have a ping system for war zones. You can tag enemies, loot, or places with it. Sweet, that answers that. Now, we will talk about DLC stuff later, but the goal is that new heroes can play any of the existing content. Glad you're excited about the game. We're equally as stoked to show it to you. So, I feel like that kind of contradicts what he was just saying, but maybe he means like war zones and some of that other stuff, because, I mean, campaign and story missions are kind of specific to the hero themselves in any game you play. So we'll see how that bears out. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys think we'll be able to play all story missions with all DLC characters, or do you think story campaign missions are going to be specific to the Avengers that are included in them? Will there be missions with non-action elements, for example, puzzles, science tech investigations, stealth, etc.? And will we ever be able to explore events in the Gamerverse's past, such as Captain America's WW2 experience? Phil answered, we will have some light puzzle elements, but no investigations. And I love your idea about past events. I'll talk about it with the team. So, there's probably not going to be a crazy amount of puzzle solving. It's probably just going to be, move this object here, shoot this with lightning, that kind of stuff. So don't expect too many deep elements for thinking and puzzles there. But well done, Redditor, because you just inspired a cool idea for future DLC content that we may be able to get to give backstory to our heroes. So well done, dude. And to follow up on that, will all Warzone maps have room for flying, ranged movements? My biggest/only worry right now is that there won't be any room for some heroes such as Iron Man to properly breathe. Thanks for all the work you guys are doing and hope you have an amazing week. Phil answers, you can fly everywhere, including indoors and underground. Though the ceilings can be a bit lower inside, you won't be forced to walk anywhere except for things like transitions between areas. Really glad this question was asked because based on some of the gameplay like you're seeing right now in the Once an Avengers Story gameplay trailer, I was really worried that the game would be too linear and not really leave you room to explore and breathe, so I'm excited to see just how high we can travel with heroes like Thor and Iron Man. So the next question's a little bit longer, and I wanted to keep these two together because they really apply to each other. So let's get started. Are there going to be times where we can freely explore regions peacefully, or is it just constant action? Phil answered, in between objectives, you are absolutely free to roam as you please and look for points of interest around the level. These can be allies to rescue, bounty enemies to defeat for loot, hidden caches, secret AIM stockpiles of resources, or you could raid AIM's depots where they store gear. Typically, those rewards are defended, but you can roam around the environment without constantly fighting if you just want to admire the scenery or have fun doing traversal. That's pretty cool. Now my follow-up question is, how big can we expect the war zones like the one we see of Thor flying over rooftops with Hulk and Miss Marvel below? And Phil said it's hard to give exact numbers, but typically when you enter a war zone, your first objective could be 300 to 400 meters away, or multiple objectives to a war zone, plus some optional spaces to explore. In a city, this would mean that you get several city blocks worth in a single mission. I will try to measure one and give you guys more details later. That's pretty exciting. That means these missions are a little bit bigger than just small single-player campaign areas for co-op. Like, we'll be able to, if you guys don't know the scale of a city block, it's about 260 by 900 feet. So 900 feet is about 275 meters, and he described the objectives as being about 300 meters away, give or take. So you'll have to run like several like New York City blocks in order to get between objectives, which is pretty fun. I'm excited for this. Let's get to the next question. How will loot work? Will it just drop after destroying enemies and you have to run over to it, sort of like Minecraft? Or will it be specifically in boxes? Some loot comes from defeating enemies, some you can acquire from strong boxes in the level. These have different quality levels, gold, silver, and bronze. You can also get loot from completing missions, and the better you do at objectives, the better your rewards will be at the end. We also have different resources that will be in the world. Some are more rare than others, and some are only found in specific regions. You can pick up the loot or wait for it to come to you. You won't miss out on anything. So I'm assuming that if something drops and it breaks and it opens out to the world, there will be like an auto loot function at the end of the mission. That way, any loot you may have missed or to pick up will come to you in the end. So that's pretty cool. Now, as far as gear and loot goes, my buddy Meaty Yogurt had a really good question about if I'm playing a specific hero, do I collect gear specific to that hero? Now, the next question doesn't answer that, but it helps me assume that that's correct. So if I'm playing Thor, I'll get Thor loot. If I'm playing Miss Marvel, I'll get Miss Marvel loot. So let's get into the next one. How build defining is the gear? Can you compare it to another game such as Diablo style, where a single item can change the way an ability interacts? Thinking like Tokens Graze in Diablo 3 that makes a Wave of Light a ranged ability, and you completely change the monk to a ranged powerhouse and build around that item. Or is the gear more like Destiny or Anthem perhaps? Phil gave a pretty good answer here. Gear has stats and perks, so I can make a huge difference in how you play your hero. For example, if you have gear perks that reward you for dodging attacks perfectly, you might play a very evasive playstyle to benefit from those perks. In that vein, if you really want to play Hulk as a ranged hero, I do this, Phil says, you can choose gear that enhances his ranged power. Between all that and the skill choices, you can really play the way you want. Side note, my Hulk with range build includes cosmic damage enhanced boulders, so I'm calling it the Cosmic Trebuchet. Now, this is pretty cool because they mentioned it briefly in the War Table video that depending on the ability perks you play with, you can adapt and change your abilities to react differently to with your hero and your gear. So in that video, they have Iron Man with green laser bolts powered by gamma radiation. And he specifically mentions having cosmic enhanced boulders for his cosmic Hulk build. So this is going to be really cool to see just how loot drops and how it affects the builds you can create. All right, so what can we expect from the in-game store? Edit. Also, any chance for like a simulation area where we can fight enemies without a mission attached to it, like challenge maps with some sort of high score leaderboard system, maybe an endless horde mode? And the answer to that is, there are vendors on the helicarrier and outpost which sell gear for in-game currency. But if you mean the currency store, that's only for some cosmetic options. So that means we'll be able to get some gear and cool looks for our heroes. Now, yes, there are simulations. We have harm rooms in the game, which you can use to learn heroes' abilities and test your skills against tougher challenges. That sounds pretty fun. And what I see happening here is the potential for speed runs and to really be able to test out creative build sets and the functionality of those builds in a controlled environment. So that, this as a content creator, that's pretty exciting to me. All right, so the next question, how frequently can we expect updates? And will updates only be large DLC type updates, or will there be smaller updates for bug fixes and such, or maybe a little addition such as a new map every now and then? We want to give you guys a roadmap for updates. Stay tuned, we're working on it. Coming from the Star Wars Battlefront 2 community, I wasn't active as a content creator, but I was very active in following other content creators and staying up to date with community transmissions and such. It's super important to have a roadmap for these types of things. It gives kind of a plan of attack for the game developers themselves, as well as keeping us informed on what to expect for the game. I'm really curious to see how the war tables will play into that plan, and I'm excited to actually see their written out plan once they get it posted. So this next question I picked mainly because of Phil's response overall, so let's check this out. If you're able to, can you share what the long-term vision of the Warzone is? From my understanding, there seems to be story elements to it, and it is a way to play with your friends. How do you see Warzone transforming over time as the development team receives feedback from the players? It's a loaded question, and I know it probably can't be touched on, but I'm personally really looking forward to see how this game grows over time. Thank you for asking this question, Reddit user. Phil responds, I'm going to answer this just because you told me not to. I like this guy already. I'm setting a bad precedent here. Seriously though, long term, we would like to add more regions for variety, new objectives, and certainly new stories and villains to go along with the new heroes. There's always room to add. Our goal with Warzones was to build them in such a way where we can keep adding them in the future, and we have done that. A few years down the road, yes, he said, a few years down the road, I can only imagine how many more cool things we're going to add. Some are already in progress. We will talk about this stuff post-launch. Everything that's been said so far, I'm really excited for this because it tells me that they really plan to add a lot of depth to this game that I was not expecting. I honestly thought this was going to go the way of the PS4 Spider-Man game, where we got a really cool story, we got a little bit of DLC, and that was it. And honestly, that would have been enough for me to buy the game and play it, but now I'm even more hyped for all of the custom cosmetics, all of the cool loot that's coming, and the abilities to, build a base in the helicarrier, and all of the other cool options that they talked about in the war table video. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm extremely excited for this game, and I think it's going to be a huge piece of this channel once it's released. I'm excited for the next war table that they haven't even announced yet, but at that time, I'm pretty sure we're going to get access or information about how us PS4 players are going to get access to the game before anybody else does. It's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to that. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to learn why I call myself the Jedi Ninja, well, I kind of take this whole sword lightsaber thing seriously. Click the video you see on your screen right now to learn to swing a sword like a dauntless slayer in real life. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Stay out of trouble, make good choices, and may the Force be with you. I'll see you guys in the next one.